Emily sweeps the cloth across the sparkling floor of Jefferson High, moving quietly through the silent hallways in the early hours when only the faint bleach and chalk dust linger in the air. Most nights, she works without conversation or distraction, her figure nearly invisible, blending in with the long rows of lockers and the empty cafeteria. When the city outside sleeps and the moonlight barely slips through the tall windows, Emily's only companion is the echo of her own footsteps bouncing off the walls. She often tells herself that everything she longs for belongs to another world, a world just beyond the reach of her mop and bucket. Still, even when her muscles ache and her mind drifts, something keeps her alert. She holds on to the hope that somehow these late hours aren't just empty routine, but a thread leading somewhere else. Each morning, as she watches students pour in, chattering about tests and weekend plans, she hides a shy wish. Maybe one day, her own story will be as important as theirs. On this night, with the corridors silent and the familiar hum of the janitor's closet behind her, Emily walks into room 204. She notices a chalkboard left untouched, a sideways glance revealing an equation, half erased, yet stubborn enough to draw her closer. Her pulse quickens. She's always been curious about math, secretly working through problems she finds in discarded textbooks or scribbled on the back of worksheets left behind. Rarely does anyone see her studying, and that's fine because she has grown used to moving unnoticed. Tonight, though, Emily feels a kind of bravery she hasn't let herself trust before. She grabs a piece of chalk left next to the eraser, hands, dusted white with possibility. There's something thrilling in the quiet, in knowing she has the space just for herself, for her thoughts to stretch and reach. She stares at numbers and symbols, the challenge lighting a spark she refuses to let die. With a flick of her wrist, she sketches the first lines of a solution, her own handwriting mixing with the teacher's, daring to finish what someone else has started. Armed with hope and a handful of half-sharpened pencils she's rescued from cleaning, Emily keeps working. Each number she writes feels like a small rebellion against being invisible. Out here, in the empty classroom under buzzing fluorescent lights, she lets herself chase the idea that she could belong to something bigger, something just beyond that. Chalkboard. Each time Emily writes a number, the classroom starts to change. Even though the lights are a little too bright and the walls echo her every move, she feels like the air is different now. Her hands guide one number after another, and with every mark, it seems like the whole space fills with a sense of promise. This isn't just a room for lessons and homework sheets anymore. It becomes a place where the past bumps against the future, where rules are quietly tested and secret codes are broken, all by a woman people hardly ever notice. She surprises herself with how quickly she gets pulled in. The old chalkboard, battered and covered in scratches from years of teachers' notes and students' doodles, suddenly looks lively under her touch. It is almost as if the board presses back into her fingers, passing on quiet encouragement. Emily isn't used to feeling welcome in places like this, but something about working through this problem makes her believe that maybe she has more to offer than most people think. She wipes sweat from her brow, steadying herself, and jumps back into the equation, rearranging numbers, adding possible solutions, and daring to erase entire lines just to start over. Somewhere along the way, the wall clock ticks past 2 in the morning. Not that Emily notices. She is too busy letting her thoughts flow, one calculation leading to another. She thinks about the teachers who have taught here, the kids who rush through the doors every fall, the rules written into every class period. And yet, as she writes, she starts to understand that maybe some things, some important things, can be learned alone, in the stillness of a room with no one watching. When the answer finally fits, sliding perfectly into place, Emily steps back and gazes at her work. For the first time in her life, she feels truly free. The weight she's always carried, the sense that she is just a shadow among the early morning halls, lifts, replaced by something lighter, almost electric. Looking at the chalkboard, at the neat path her numbers draw, she realizes she has managed to make a quiet kind of history. There may not be applause or any audience at all, but within the silent walls of Jefferson High, Emily knows her own story just took a turn. Just as Emily stands back to look at the finished equation, she hears the door creak open behind her. Spinning around, she finds Mr. Harris standing in the doorway, his eyes wide and glued to the chalkboard. He's the school's head math teacher, someone known for his stern attitude and high standards. For a brief moment, neither of them speaks. Emily feels her heart pound, her uniform with the Jefferson High logo now suddenly feeling far brighter and more noticeable than minutes before. There's a tension in the air, thick and prickly, like a secret has just been shouted down the empty hallway. Mr. Harris finally steps into the room, his gaze flicking from the complicated solutions on the board straight to Emily's nervous face. The crackling silence is awkward, almost as if an invisible line has been drawn between them. He clearly recognizes who she is and what she does every night. But seeing her here, leaving her own mark on a math problem no one else could finish, is something different. The school world he's always known and the hidden after-hours world Emily lives in have suddenly collided in these tiled halls. Emily wonders if she's in trouble. She's ready to apologize, but before she can say a word, Mr. Harris surprises her. The uncertainty in his expression shifts into excitement, and he gives a small nod, almost to himself. Instead of questioning her or telling her to leave, he steps closer to the board, studying her work in detail. His respect is quiet but clear, evident in the careful way he traces the steps she's written. After a moment, he looks back at her and speaks softly but firmly, almost as if he's letting her in on a secret. He tells Emily that what she's done is remarkable and that not many people, student or teacher, could have solved that particular equation. His next words hang in the air like a challenge. He suggests she consider taking the school's admission exam, the one everyone whispers about and dreads. For years, the test has been a symbol of what separates the ordinary from the extraordinary at Jefferson High. Mr. Harris's offer is unexpected, but it lights a spark in both of them. Emily can see excitement and curiosity growing in him, and she feels a kind of hope, wild and unfamiliar, starting to grow inside herself too. Word of Emily's achievement doesn't stay locked in that quiet classroom for long. Like a sudden gust of cold wind sweeping down Fifth Avenue, news circles around Jefferson High with surprising speed. The school is old, with its grand hallways lined with portraits of important-looking men from decades past. Many come from families that have been sending kids to Jefferson for generations, and the routines reflect that old, exclusive spirit. Some students lower their voices or laugh under their breath when they realize the janitor in the sharp blue uniform is planning to take the same admission test they all worry about. It is as if Emily has crossed an invisible line that everyone knows is there, but nobody talks about. She notices the subtle changes right away. When she walks down the hallways to do her cleaning, conversations pause and curious glances follow her. Some people look straight through her as if nothing has changed, but others seem irritated by the idea that she might actually belong among them. Emily keeps her head down, but she can feel whispers trailing her. The old guard of Jefferson High holds tightly to its rules, and it seems almost unthinkable to them that someone in Emily's position could have a mind for math. Still, she does not let it get to her. At night, when the building is empty except for the sound of her own broom, Emily doubles down. In the break room, she props up borrowed textbooks on the worn table and solves problems until her hand aches. She remembers the old sayings her grandma used to share, reminding her to keep her dreams close, even when the world tried to pull them away. Hope is like a sturdy bridge over deep water, her grandma would say, and in those lonely hours, Emily fills her mind with that image. With every new page she turns, Emily convinces herself that the ridicule and doubts are only roadblocks, not dead ends. The exam looms ahead at the end of the month, something everyone says is nearly impossible. But while others try to discourage her with dismissive looks or clever comments, Emily learns to let their words pass right through her. She wraps herself in hope the way she wraps up in her winter coat on her walk home, hanging on tight, because she knows it is her way forward. The day of the test arrives, and with it comes a thick, uneasy silence throughout Jefferson High. Every hallway seems a little colder, every stair a little longer. As Emily walks toward the testing room, she can feel eyes following her, measuring every step she takes. It is not just a math test, it is a walk right through the middle of all the old beliefs the school holds on to. Some whisper to their friends, others just glare as if daring her to prove she belongs. Inside the exam room, things do not feel much better. Emily sits at a small desk in the back, her heart beating fast but steady. She knows. She's out of place here. Some students refuse to look at her, while others snicker just loud enough for her to hear. Marcus, a senior who always seems to have something rude to say, leans back in his chair and shoots her a mocking grin. His friends laugh at some joke she cannot quite make out, but Emily does not let it shake her focus. She's used to being overlooked, but being targeted is new. Still, she squares her shoulders and holds her head high. When the test papers are handed out, Emily takes a deep breath and dives in. At first, the math problems blur together, but soon she settles into the rhythm, the numbers and symbols making more sense to her than all the people whispering behind her back. She solves each question with care, her pencil flying across the page. Problems that seem tough to others feel comfortable to her, like old tunes she knows by heart. Halfway through, Emily finds herself doing more than just answering the set problems. She begins to think of new ways to explain the solutions, jotting down her own ideas in the margins for the review board to see. She points out easier methods, suggests creative steps, and looks for patterns others might miss. She remembers her grandma's advice about not just crossing the bridge, but building a better one for those who follow. When the proctors pick up her papers, even a few of the strictest members of the faculty look genuinely surprised by what they see. The room, so full of judgment earlier, falls quiet. Emily's fresh ideas and sharp answers have left the doubters with nothing to say. For once, the lines drawn so tightly around who belongs have been pushed aside, at least for this moment. The adrenaline from finishing the exam still lingers as Emily moves through the halls, her steps feeling lighter than they have in weeks. The verdict is not even out yet, but there is a quiet boldness in how she carries herself. Still, she barely rounds the next corner when Marcus, the same senior who taunted her earlier, tries to snatch back the little spark of hope that just started to kindle in the air. Leaning against the trophy case, he calls out with his voice carrying across the lobby, "Hey, maybe you can show us how to mop the floors with all that math." The sneer is followed by a jab about janitors who think they know algebra. His friends break into laughter, enjoying the show and expecting she will just nod, brush past, and fade into the background again. But Emily is tired of fading away. Instead of shrinking, she stands tall and looks right at Marcus, her steadiness causing the hallway to fall quiet. With a calm, cool voice, she throws down a challenge for everyone to hear. "How about a fair contest? Let's each solve a problem, chosen by any teacher here. Winner takes pride, and maybe a lesson too." For a heartbeat, nobody moves, and then someone from the crowd lets out a low whistle. Marcus laughs off her challenge at first, but his face flushes when he realizes nobody is stepping in to save him. There is a teacher nearby, and soon papers, pens, and a complicated math question appear. The competition is quick and intense, watched by dozens of students and even a couple of teachers who have wandered over from their offices. Both start, scribbling furiously, the crowd holding its breath. Marcus tries to keep up, but his pen slows down, and irritation flashes across his face. Emily stays steady, solving not just for an answer, but showing her work in a way that impresses everyone watching. When she finishes, she gently sets her pen down and offers her paper first. The verdict is clear. Emily not only finishes faster, her solution is more creative and easier to follow. Marcus has no choice but to accept the loss, even if his pride stings. A few students, quick with their phones, have captured the whole moment, and the video spreads around school by lunchtime. The laughter that used to chase Emily down the halls has now become something new. A round of applause and a spark of courage. Suddenly other students, many who had also felt invisible, begin to see themselves in her place, realizing they, too, can take on the challenge. One lazy afternoon, the halls at Jefferson High are unusually quiet. Emily, making her way through her usual rounds, stops by the old supply closet tucked behind the cafeteria kitchen. She's looking for some spare gloves, but ends up getting a whiff of that musty, dusty smell only places like this keep. Among bottles of cleaning spray, a pile of forgotten yearbooks, and sports equipment, something catches her eye. An envelope tucked inside a tin lunchbox. It looks worn at the edges and stained with age. When Emily picks it up, she instantly recognizes her mother's careful handwriting from years ago. With a trembling hand, she opens the envelope, pulling out a letter she didn't even remember losing. The paper inside is yellowed and soft, threatening to fall apart if she's not careful. She sits down right there, perched on a crate, letting the faint hum of the school's heating system blend with her heartbeat. Reading her mother's words, she's taken back, every sentence lined with encouragement, reminding her to stay proud of where she comes from. The letter speaks not just of hope, but of strength passed down from her grandmother and the generations before her, women who faced bigger challenges and still kept their heads up. Emily reads and rereads the words a dozen times. With every pass, the meaning grows. The letter isn't just about her personal struggle to fit in or do something surprising at Jefferson High. In her mother's stories are reminders that she stands at the end of a long family line, one marked by resilience and quiet courage. Her mother writes about growing up in New York, about dreaming of better futures, and about never letting anyone tell her she is just meant to stay on the sidelines. By the time Emily folds the letter up again, her spine feels a little straighter. It becomes clear to her, none of this was ever only about one test or about beating Marcus or even about taking a seat in a classroom where she was never meant to belong. Every bit of struggle, every tired night, and every awkward stare in these hallways has been about something much bigger, fighting for the simple right for people like her and so many others to exist, to be seen, and to be respected in spaces like Jefferson High. A few days later, word spreads that Principal Gaines has called an assembly in the main auditorium, and by the time Emily walks in, the place is packed. Rows of students chatter excitedly, their voices echoing off the high marble walls and the stage at the front. Emily finds a seat in the back, her badge still clipped to the pocket of her blue Jefferson High uniform. As she settles into the creaky chair, she can't help but feel the eyes of other students swinging her way with every new rumor they toss around the room. The assembly starts with some routine announcements, but things change when Mr. Atkins, the oldest math teacher at the school and practically a legend in those parts, takes the microphone. The auditorium quiets down, as even the rowdiest seniors know that when Mr. Atkins speaks, people listen. He starts talking about the importance of creative thinking and how someone recently solved a math problem using a completely new approach, one that impressed the entire faculty panel. He explains the solution in detail, turning slowly as he gestures to the board behind him. Not once does he say Emily's name, but as his explanation gets more and more specific, people in the audience begin to murmur and turn in their seats. They remember the math contest in the hallway, the looks of shock and admiration on teachers' faces, and the video that made its way through so many cell phones. While Mr. Atkins stays careful to keep things anonymous, Emily feels heat rising to her face. The crowd's curiosity grows, mixing respect with confusion, and several students glance at her with wide eyes, as if seeing her for the first time. She knows that by mentioning the method without giving it a name, Mr. Atkins is both protecting her from unwanted attention and acknowledging her at the same time. That silent recognition, half in the light, half tucked away, throws the old, comfortable order of the school off balance. Whispers spread across the rows, not just about her solution, but about the question of who should get credit and how old customs are kept alive at Jefferson High. As the applause finally begins and the assembly moves on, Emily sits quietly, thinking about the strange position she now holds. She senses the weight of everyone's expectations, especially those who watch with suspicion and those who watch with hope. It is a new kind of responsibility, and she is not sure yet if that door is opening for her alone or for everyone like her who dreams of crossing into these spaces. Not long after the assembly, everything starts moving faster than Emily could have imagined. The Jefferson High administration, noticing the excitement that's been stirring up among students and parents, sees an opportunity to polish the school's reputation. Suddenly, Emily is invited to the principal's office. The admin team, all suits and polite smiles, asks her if she wouldn't mind participating in a few school publicity shots. They explain that her unique journey at Jefferson could inspire others. Emily hesitates for a second, but the meeting is already rolling along, and soon photo day is scheduled. On the morning of the shoot, she's handed a freshly ironed Jefferson High shirt and told to stand in front of the library's grand entrance. There are flashes, quick smiles, and Emily saying lines written out for her. Stories about how Jefferson is open to everyone and how it's a place for dreams to come true. The words do not feel like hers, but she delivers them anyway, trying to keep her discomfort from showing. People behind the scenes nod and murmur that the shots will look great on the website and in their next admissions flyer. Requests for Emily to speak at events follow quickly. She's given scripts, always, steering her story toward how the school has changed and how grateful she should be. During these speeches, she stands at podiums as cameras flash. Her story gets shared, rewritten, and molded into the perfect narrative about diversity and breaking boundaries. More often than not, she notices that the conversation always seems to circle back to the school's image, never to the students or staff who are still left out. All along, nothing really shifts where it matters. In the lunchroom, Emily still notices the same cliques sitting in the same spots, careful to keep outsiders at arm's length. The staff lounge remains closed off to those who aren't teachers or administrators. Celebrating Emily's achievements makes for bright headlines, but the everyday divisions stay untouched. The same old boundaries hover like invisible fences in every hallway. Day by day, Emily's frustration grows. She starts to realize that her story is only being celebrated as long as it fits into the administration's plan. A banner for the school, not real change for people like her. The applause feels empty when she thinks about the friends she has made among the school's custodial and cafeteria workers, who know better than anyone how deep those walls truly run. It is just as spring starts to show itself around Jefferson High when Emily hears the first snatches of an ugly rumor. At first, it is only glimpsed in hushed voices as she walks past crowded halls, but soon the talk grows louder, snaking its way through classrooms and lunch tables. Someone, no one seems to know who, has started saying that Emily did not come up with her math solution on her own. Instead, the rumor says she just copied someone else's work. Plagiarism, plain and simple. In the place already stretched tight with old grudges and silent rules, the gossip picks up speed. Though Emily tries to brush it off, the accusation gets under her skin. She feels embarrassed, her stomach tight and her hands a little shaky, when she suddenly notices students glancing her way and cutting off their conversations. Even a few teachers seem distant, not cold, just different. After all her hard work, after everything she stood for, it hurts more than she expected. Lying in bed that night, she thinks about all the hours she spent in the library, the stacks of notebooks at home, and the way her mother's letter reminded her to hold on to her truth. That's when Emily remembers the record she has always kept. Buried in a box in her closet, beneath years of math club handouts and old assignments, are her original notebooks filled with problem-solving sketches, handwritten notes, and even dated drafts of the very innovation everyone has been talking about. There are emails exchanged with her math club sponsor and her teachers, outlining her process from the beginning. The next morning she carefully organizes her notes and makes her way to Ms. Townsend, her most trusted teacher. Thanks to her strong documentation, what follows is quick. Emily lays everything out, page after page, date after date, her progress as clear as day. When classmates and school administrators see the evidence, the rumor deflates almost overnight. The students who fueled the suspicion find themselves called out, and for the first time, some of the quieter students in the school step forward to back Emily up. These are kids and staff who have seen the same things happen to their own ideas and efforts. They rally around her, forming a circle of support that feels more genuine than any headline or photo ever did. This moment, instead of breaking her, strengthens Emily's resolve. She realizes she is not fighting just for herself anymore, but for every unseen person who is tired of being pushed to the background. Even as the false accusations begin to fade, the mood in Jefferson High stays tense. The whispers may have quieted, but Emily feels the shift. Around the lunchroom and between the dusty shelves in the library, the old wounds of the place start to show themselves, sharper than ever. Nobody says anything out loud at first, but the way some students hold themselves a little taller while others grow quieter says enough. Groups at the lunch tables look more closed off, like the invisible lines dividing them have grown thicker. Even in study groups, Emily can sense a subtle push, a feeling that she is still an outsider. Things come to a head during one of the weekly staff-student meetings, a tradition at Jefferson for giving everyone a voice. This week, an older staff member named Mr. Harding, who has worked at the school for over 30 years, stands up and says exactly what some have been thinking. We have always been about tradition and true merit here at Jefferson. We can't let ourselves slip by making too many exceptions. That isn't what this place is about. His words are blunt, echoing off the walls and into every corner of the room. For Emily, it feels like someone has dropped a glass on the floor, shattered the fragile sense of belonging she had tried to build. After that meeting, Emily walks out with her head spinning, but she refuses to hide. Instead, she starts to lean on the connections she has built with other students who also feel out of place, those who work behind the scenes, those new to the country, or those who have always just felt quiet. She begins hosting small gatherings after hours in forgotten corners of the school. The empty lunchroom, after everyone has left, or tucked away tables in the library, where the windows let in the city lights at night. At first, only a few join her. They come with homework, stories about tough teachers or unfair rules, and sometimes just looking for someone to listen. The group grows bit by bit, and something unexpected happens there. Emily finds that even when the rest of Jefferson feels cold, these small, warm circles of people open up to each other. Together, they share what it is like to feel invisible. Over time, these friendships and late-night talks start to feel like the first real family Emily has at school. A group defined not by what the outside world says, but by how they support each other, no matter what. As the weeks move along at Jefferson High, the tension that lingers in the hallways starts creeping into the staff rooms and the administration offices. One afternoon, Ms. Townsend, who has been Emily's biggest advocate, gets an official call to appear before the school board. The meeting is held in the wood-paneled conference room on the top floor, the one with long windows looking out across Manhattan, but where the air always feels a bit stale. Ms. Townsend knows immediately that this is about her decision to support Emily, despite all the skepticism and lack of official paperwork that usually counts for everything at Jefferson. She has already heard the talk among other teachers, those who say that rules exist for a reason and that every student is supposed to have the right certificates, the right recommendations, all in neat order. As she walks through the tall double doors, the board's members are already seated. Older men and women with serious faces, their attention flipping between her and their thick folders of regulations. They ask Ms. Townsend to explain herself. How could she possibly stand up for a student, however talented, who does not carry the same official credentials as everyone else? Their tone is not angry, really, but you can feel the coldness. The conversation feels more like an interrogation than a discussion. Ms. Townsend sits straight and talks about Emily's dedication, about the hours spent mentoring her, about the visible impact on other students. She mentions the late nights in the library and the small group meetings growing in number. While she faces their questions, Ms. Townsend cannot help but think back on all the times Emily's presence changed the energy in a room, made quieter kids brave enough to speak, made people listen a bit more closely to stories they would have ignored. It hits her that, in all the time she has worked at Jefferson, real change has rarely started with rules or perfect paperwork. Real change started with courage and a willingness to help someone find their way, even when the system made it hard. She leaves the room a little shaken, but also fired up in a way she has not felt in years. When Ms. Townsend returns to her classroom, she pulls Emily aside and promises her that, no matter what the board thinks, she will keep pushing for everyone to matter at Jefferson. She starts looking for allies, more ready than ever to challenge what has always been and fight for what could be, even if that means swimming against the current. The winds keep shifting at Jefferson High, but not every change is loud. It happens one late afternoon, as Emily stays behind to help Ms. Townsend stack returned library books. The place is mostly empty, sunlight sliding across the old wood tables. That is when Sophia, a new student in town, appears in the doorway, clutching a borrowed math book to her chest. Sophia nods politely at Emily and the teacher, face uncertain but determined to stay. Emily, remembering exactly how it feels to be the new kid in a place stacked with unspoken rules, waves her over. Sophia's background is a mystery to most. She keeps to herself and isn't on the honor roll or the sports teams. She and Emily barely spoke before this, but there is a kind of silent understanding, a shared feeling that neither of them is quite what the school expects them to be. Soon, Sophia starts coming to the late-night gatherings in the library too, and finds herself slowly welcomed by the small group, set adrift from the popular crowd. It doesn't take long for Emily and Sophia to find their own rhythm. They laugh together over vending machine snacks tucked between dusty library stacks. Sometimes, as the school sleeps around them, they swap family stories, Sophia's tales from her grandmother down in El Paso, Emily's memories of holiday dinners back in Queens before her father lost his job. These quiet moments turn into little ceremonies, Sophia teaches Emily phrases in Spanish she learned as a child, and Emily laughs when Sophia asks about New York City's subway tricks. When the air is tense or a hallway feels too cold, they share a quiet joke or an old lullaby passed down through years of women who knew how to keep strong with little. There's no official notice for this kind of friendship, no award, no school, assembly. Even so, in those shared stories and secret giggles, Emily and Sophia stitched together their own form of resistance. Supporting each other and weaving everyone else in their circle closer, they make a quiet promise to see each other, to hold on to hope, and not to let the outside world decide who they should be. Together, their bond grows into a foundation strong enough to weather all of Jefferson's silent tests, proof that real community can grow even where no one expects it. It does not take long for word about Emily's achievements to drift beyond Jefferson High's walls. One afternoon, buried in a stack of mail on the tiny table she uses in the staff kitchen, Emily finds a formal letter from the National Science Scholars Foundation. The envelope looks important, and her name is printed in bold letters. She holds it in her hands, heart pounding, both hopeful and uncertain. Inside, there is an offer, a scholarship so generous it seems unreal, promising full tuition at a prestigious university in Boston. There is, however, one very clear condition. If Emily accepts, she must agree not to mention her time spent as a cleaner at Jefferson High. The foundation, for all its talk of excellence, wants her past wiped away from their records. The offer fills the air around Emily, both with excitement and a strange, heavy silence. She sits alone on her narrow bed, tracing the outline of the letter on her lap, staring out the window at the city lights. For years, she has scrubbed the library floors and emptied trash cans in the science labs after school, proud of the paycheck that helped her mom. Now, those same long hours are something the scholarship people ask her to keep hidden. It is as if her hard work makes her unworthy unless it disappears. Late into the night, Emily paces her little room. The only keepsake she has from home is a wrinkled envelope tucked beneath her pillow, holding a letter from her mother written back when they moved to New York. She sits quietly and rereads it by the blue glow from her phone. Her mother's words are handwritten, a reminder that their family has always been about honesty and dignity, more important than awards, more lasting than money. Emily knows she is not just weighing her own future. She's thinking of her mother, Ms. Townsend, Sophia, and all the other students who see her as more than a headline or symbol. The scholarship could change her life, but she wonders what is lost if she steps into a new world by denying her roots. For the first time since the offer arrived, Emily realizes that the real choice is not about money or even recognition. It is about whether her story has value as it actually happened, or only if it can be rewritten for someone else's convenience. A few days after the offer arrives, Emily knows she cannot just let the decision sit in silence. The news of her scholarship has already circled among teachers and students, and the principal asks if she would speak about it at the next school meeting. The day of the meeting, Emily wears her favorite blue sweater and tries to steady her nerves as she walks into the auditorium where Jefferson High's big decisions always play out. People gather in clusters, whispering about what she will say. Ms. Townsend and Sophia nod encouragement from the front row. The school board members are there too, sitting straight-backed with their usual careful expressions. Emily steps to the microphone, the offer letter folded neatly in her hand. She looks directly at the crowd and says, "Thank you for the honor of being chosen by the National Science Scholars Foundation." Then with a breath, she reads the final condition out loud, that she must never mention her years working as a cleaner in Jefferson's halls if she wants to accept. For a moment, the room falls totally silent, everyone waiting for what comes next. Emily's voice does not waver. She tells everyone how cleaning Jefferson's classrooms after school was not something she did because she had no future, but something she did so she and her mother could build one together. She says, "The work made her strong and never took away from her ability to learn or to invent. My story is not a burden," she tells them, "and scrubbing floors is not a secret I'm ashamed of. What I have lived is my reserve of strength. I cannot erase where I came from, not for a scholarship and not for anything else that someone wants to give me." The shock in the auditorium is almost physical. Some teachers and students clap, a few stand, while a wave of debate and muttering rushes through the rest. People who once cheered her start to question her choice. Some teachers seem embarrassed, even angry, that she walked away from such a big opportunity. Others begin to see her in a new light. Instead of a symbol or a pity case, Emily becomes something bigger, a possible guide for students watching from the sidelines. In the days that follow, Emily feels the sting of being left out of conversations she used to be part of. She notices the cold shoulders from certain staff members, but there is something new too. The eyes of quiet students meeting hers with respect, a look that says maybe now they believe it is possible to carry your whole story forward and still shine. Emily's choice sends ripples much farther than the walls of Jefferson High. What started as a simple scholarship decision turns into something much bigger almost overnight. Local newspapers pick up the story and run headlines about her public refusal of the offer. Reporters call her brave for standing up for her history, while others wonder about the wisdom of turning down such a golden opportunity. The story pops up all over social media, and even some college forums in Boston argue back and forth about whether someone should have to hide their past to fit into a better future. At school, it seems like Emily is mentioned everywhere she goes. Teachers discuss her decision in homeroom, and students debate it over lunch, no matter which side they are on. People Emily barely knows start nodding at her in the halls, some offering quiet congratulations or words of support. It is not long before a steady stream of students who have always flown under the radar, kids who work 2 jobs, help their families pay rent, or just never felt like they belonged, begin to seek her out. They ask her for advice, telling her that seeing someone like them say no to shame helps them feel stronger. For the first time, Emily sees students from all grades coming up just to talk about their own stories and struggles. But Emily soon realizes that being suddenly famous comes with a price she never expected. She used to feel like just another face at school. Now, every step feels watched. Teachers include her in serious meetings about changing school culture, and her inbox fills with invitations to join panels or to give short speeches at events in the city. People repeat her name as if she stands for something bigger than she ever meant. Sometimes the weight of it gets heavy, and she misses those first quiet meetings in the library with nothing expected of her except to be herself. She worries too about losing the freedom to speak or feel uncertain. Emily tries to remind herself that courage sometimes looks like honesty, and not always knowing what comes next. Even as she fills out her university forms and packs for Boston, she walks a careful line, learning to hold on to her own story without letting the crowds or headlines turn her into something she is not. This balancing act is new and scary, but in small ways, Emily knows she is still growing. After all the attention from Emily's speech and the flurry of conversations it sparks, the leadership team at Jefferson High spends weeks meeting behind closed doors. The debates among staff are endless. Some see Emily as a spark for much-needed change, while others whisper about chaos or the dangers of letting exceptions set a new standard. Eventually, the principal and a few board members ask to see her in the same conference room where so many big decisions are made. Sitting across the shiny table, they get to the point. Jefferson High has an unexpected opening for a substitute teaching position in the science department just for the upcoming spring semester. The invitation is both an honor and a risk. Some on the board are straightforward. This could show students what is possible for someone who breaks the mold. Others, more quietly, are betting on Emily to stumble, hoping to prove that her ideals do not match up in the real world of education. Emily listens carefully, her hands folded on her lap, and feels the weight of what accepting would mean. She knows the whispers will follow her into the classroom, and every lesson, every grade she gives, every word spoken will be doubted twice as much as those from any other teacher. All the unspoken rules of the school, who gets to teach, who deserves respect, are hidden in the looks she receives, even before she says yes. Still, she says she will do it. The chance to stand at the front of a classroom is too important, not just for herself, but for those quieter students watching from the edge of every group. Emily remembers the long nights working as a cleaner, stepping into empty classrooms after the end-of-day bell. Now she imagines sharing science with students in those very same rooms. She spends days preparing lessons, reading advice books, and planning ways to make her classes lively for kids who are used to tuning out. Emily knows that no written test in her whole life compares to this challenge. The students will notice everything, and so will her colleagues. Some are ready to cheer her on, while others are almost waiting for her to fail. Either way, she starts her first day as a substitute, knowing the real test is showing everyone that dignity, honesty, and effort matter more than any old rules written on the staff room wall. On her first day as a substitute teacher, Emily can feel the weight of every stare long before the first bell rings. She walks the halls differently now, carrying a satchel, stuffed with lesson plans, past teachers' lounges where old staff members barely glance up as she passes. Some mutter greetings with stiff politeness, while others keep conversations going as if she is invisible. It is the students' reactions that cut the deepest. Many in her first period chemistry class swap uncertain glances when she writes her name on the whiteboard. A few fidget in their seats, waiting for her to prove she belongs in charge. Emily senses the resistance in everything. The way students answer her with one-word replies, the way some slump into their hoodies or watch her with suspicion as though she's only passing through. There's a chilly air from faculty too, especially from teachers who have been at Jefferson High for more than 20 years. During breaks, they say little to her, and if they must, their words come slow and careful. Like every sentence is a test she needs to pass. Even the smallest routines, the key to the supply closet, the way substitute schedules are posted, seem to trip her up on purpose. Each little mix-up a reminder of how the old system works to protect itself. But Emily has spent her life working through obstacles that most never see. She throws herself into teaching in her own way. Instead of just assigning homework from the textbook, she ties every chemistry lesson to something close to home for her students. When they talk about chemical reactions, she brings up things like cleaning products or city air pollution, topics that actually touch their lives. She compares chemical changes to moments of change in people's lives, using examples from her own story and stories some of the students share when they feel safe. Soon enough, the classroom starts to shift. There are quiet whispers of, "This makes sense," or little murmurs of surprise when someone who never speaks suddenly answers a question. In the back rows, students who usually fade into the background begin to nod along and even volunteer opinions, quick smiles darting across their faces. Emily knows not everyone is convinced, but slowly she sees that her approach lights a spark, especially among kids who have always felt like no one in school was speaking to them at all. Emily does not want to be the only one breaking through old barriers. One evening, after a long day of teaching, she pulls some leftover chairs together in the back of an empty science lab and posts a hand-drawn sign on the door. "Study group, all welcome." She lets word of mouth and quiet endorsements from students who struggled, find the others who might need a place to belong. Anyone who feels like they never really had a spot at Jefferson High, whether because they work late shifts, take care of siblings after class, or just never saw themselves as regular students, is welcome. She keeps the sign simple. No grand announcements and no fancy flyers, because she wants people to come as they are. As the weeks go on, more and more students drift in once the school day ends and the halls get cold. Some bring snacks from home, others just slide in with heavy backpacks and relief written on their faces. Emily notices the room changes at night. The harshness of the school day fades, and laughter or real questions come more easily when no one is counting grades. Some kids just need help with homework, and a few just want to sit and listen, finding comfort in being part of a group that never judges who they are or where they came from. A few organizations outside the school catch wind of what Emily is building and reach out with sponsorship offers. They want her to put their names on posters and let them call the group the next big success story. Emily turns them down every time. She makes it clear she's not doing any of this to win prizes or to become a symbol on a pamphlet. Her dream is to help start something lasting, a real cycle of learning and belonging, somewhere deeper than the shallow spotlight that comes with attention. Everyone who comes to the group has space to lead or just to learn. She does not want a group that can be put in a display case and shown off. She wants a community. Even when winter hits hard and the building's old radiators struggle to keep up, the group grows. The quiet hum of voices at night fills the school with a new kind of energy, one that breaks open possibilities. For many, this is the first place they have felt the door to learning was thrown wide, and Emily sits among them, as eager to learn and listen as anyone else. 5 months after she first stepped into that classroom as a teacher, Emily finds herself alone one evening, sitting on the wide stone steps in the middle of Jefferson High's courtyard. Warm air drifts up from the gardens, carrying traces of cut grass and distant laughter that echoes through the nearly empty halls. The building feels different now, less like a fortress she had to break into and more like a place she helped, open for others. She sits there silently, hands clasped in her lap, and lets herself really feel it all, the setbacks, the pressure, the small moments that made it worth it. As she breathes in, she picks up the familiar smell of cleaning products, something most people do not notice or think about. For Emily, that scent carries 1,000 memories, long nights pushing a mop down these same corridors, thinking of ways life could be better. She remembers the fears she faced just to get here, the doubts, the awkward glances, the struggle to balance what she owed herself with what others expected. There were sacrifices too, time she spent away from her mother, moments she missed with old friends, the simple comfort of drifting along quietly. But looking back, she would not trade the journey. Every new night class, every kid who stayed late with questions, every teacher who finally smiled at her in the staff room, they all became part of what she built. Sitting under the soft glow of the streetlights, Emily smiles just a little, lifting her head, not needing any audience or applause. For the first time, she feels at home on these marble steps, not like a visitor or a curiosity, but as someone who belongs. She knows her story has meant something, not just for herself, but for the quiet kids who now linger in the halls after school, for colleagues who started seeing students and staff with new eyes, and for anyone else who ever thought the word teacher only meant one kind of person. Emily understands now that her greatest victory is this simple feeling. She can walk these halls with her head held high, true to herself, proud of what she let go and what she claimed. She has carved out a place here as proof that no old chalkboard can keep someone from sharing what they are meant to give. The doors will never close the same way again.